Hello, beautiful human beings. I hope all of you are doing well. Welcome back to a new video. My name is Evelyn Barta, and this video will be one of those videos in which we are talking about conspiracy realities, and we will get into this new phase, new stage, new part two, or however we want to call it, part two of the Great Reset, which we are finding ourselves kind of in the middle of. And there is probably a part three as well that is in the making. I kind of like covered that in my previous videos, but we will get into that today because it's hard to find the interconnection between the events and to understand the different layers of this very complicated agenda. Even for those, it's hard to understand that are orchestrating it. So we will get into that into this video. And we are also finding ourselves in the middle of this Mars-Saturn conjunction. So you might be feeling resentful at this time. You might be feeling angry. You might be feeling like your efforts, your work are being taken for granted. You are not being appreciated. You might be feeling like that in terms of other people, but you can be feeling like that as well in terms of yourself. And it all starts with you. So it's important for us to look inward, to go within and to check which areas of our lives we are not appreciating ourselves enough, because these emotions are coming from the past. They are coming from certain traumas and issues that haven't been resolved yet. And globally as well, this can escalate things, like there might be anger in the world, and there might be an urge to push back and to take action. That is that Mars energy, and to say no as well, to set very strong boundaries when it comes to other people and things like that. So globally that can escalate, and I talked about that in my April video. That is the influence of Mars and Saturn together. But what I have noticed on many people is that they are really going inward, and that is the solution for not projecting our own traumas to the outside world, but sitting with those emotions and resolving those emotions within us. So I just wanted to let you know that if you have been feeling like that in the past few days, that is because of that influence, because I have been feeling like that, and I know where is it coming from. And that is the way that we can solve those issues instead of projecting them onto other people. So you might be feeling as well very triggered by certain situations. You will be more triggered than before because things are kind of reaching this boiling point in us, and then we can release. So there's a lot of release, there's a lot of purging, and there's a lot of healing as well because of that. And that is contributing in this great spiritual awakening in the world right now. So I will pull a card at the end of the video, and I will be checking this shadow side of the society and what we as a collective need to work on. So which areas we have to do this shadow work, and yeah, so I will pull cards for this guidance. All right, so let's talk about this Great Reset and this orchestration of this Great Reset and resetting the economy, resetting the belief system as well, and the whole control grid, and establishing this control grid, which is essentially their biggest goal, to establish this control grid in the world. So in the past few months, since not a few weeks, let's say a few weeks, especially since this Ukraine-Russia conflict started to escalate, what was very noticeable on these social media platforms as well, like Facebook and Instagram, is that these hate speech policies have been loosened up. So Meta, which is the parent company of these two social media platforms, has relaxed this hate speech policy noticeably, but only when someone is talking against Russia and when it is directed to Russian people. Now, the problem with that is that it's kind of like paving the way toward the normalizing of this cancel culture, which has been going on for a while, and the normalizing of going against those people that are having a different opinion. So the normalizing of censorship as well, and that censorship is targeting people that have a different opinion. Now, the problem with that justifying of this cancel culture and justifying this hate speech and engaging into conversations on these social media platforms that are going against Russians, or justifying the war itself and going against the Ukrainians, right? Because it's working both ways. So people tend to take sides, and they either go this way or they go that way. They either justify what is happening against Russia and are taking the side of Ukraine, or they are justifying the war and they are taking the side of Russia. And it all goes back to their social conditioning, and it goes back to their childhood traumas as well, and how they felt in the family unit and what traumas they have. Because they either take one side that they consider to be the victim and it needs to be protected, that victim, or they take the other side that they consider to be the black sheep. And it all goes back to your childhood wounding. So in this case, it's not only enough to understand that if we take sides and we start arguing with each other and fighting with each other, then we give the global elite and those that are orchestrating these events a free ticket to harvest our energies, because this is essentially their goal, to turn us against each other. So it's not enough to understand this and to stop doing this because we understand that this is what they are doing with us. It's important, yes, to understand that. But the most important thing is that to ask yourself, why do you tend to take sides? What childhood wounding is being activated in you that is making you to take sides and then to argue with other people? Also, why you are justifying the acts of one of the sides. So it has never been a more important time and a better opportunity for us to rise above both sides and to have compassion for both that are involved in this conflict. All right. And the hatred that is directed towards the Russians right now, and without you saying that I'm a Russian propagandist or I'm pro-Russia or anything like that, because I've been told from previous videos that I'm pro-Russia, which is absolutely not the case. I'm pro-humanity. And the hatred that we are directing toward one side, and that can be Ukraine as well. But according to the official narrative and the propaganda, the hatred on a global level is being directed towards Russians right now. The hatred that is being directed towards the Russians right now is the same hatred that was directed towards the unvaccinated people last year. Not even 1 year ago, like less than 1 year ago. Do you remember? It was the exact same tactic. And if we refuse to acknowledge that, and we refuse to acknowledge that we are being manipulated, that is putting us in a very dangerous position, a very vulnerable position. Because the first step toward changing things is to acknowledge that, yes, we are being manipulated. So part one of this global reset that has been in the making for a long time was the pandemic, and were the countermeasures of the pandemic and their devastating impact on the global economy. So what was this pandemic about? What is that they have achieved with that? They have managed to acclimatize the world to lockdowns, to normalize the pushing for and the acceptance of experimental medications, and they also managed to set up the world's largest transfer of wealth to corporations by killing small and medium-sized businesses. This is what they achieved with this pandemic. And by killing small and medium-sized businesses, they have also managed to adjust business and workforce operations to embrace more and more artificial intelligence, to embrace a cybernetic future, so they can pave the way toward their great reset by building back better. So they can build back better. That is their slogan. And building back better means that they will build back in a way that will benefit them, that will ensure the establishment of this control grid on the planet. That's what they mean by that. Building back in a way that they can be 100% sure that their control grid is established in the world. And people cannot really push back because they don't have the power any longer. So this Russia and Ukraine war, if things are escalating in terms of the economy and things are going the way that they are going right now, it can really push the economy into stagflation. And stagflation means that inflation and unemployment rates are rising and are high, while the economic growth is stagnating. So it slows down, sort of. And if that happens, what this global elite will do when the economy is stagnating, the unemployment rates are high, people start to panic about that. And that is a great opportunity for them to introduce the universal basic income, which I already talked about. So it is a planned strategy to introduce this universal basic income that will create dependency. And universal basic income means a certain amount of money, a universal amount of money that is being offered by the governments to people to survive, to make sure that their basic needs are being met, but not enough money in order for one to thrive. But the amount is just enough for one individual to be dependent on a governmental system, a governmental welfare, sort of. So it will ensure, so everyone will get the same amount of money, not more, not less. So this will ensure that we are equally poor and we can equally rely on the government. And when we are equally poor and we are relying on them, then we become unable to threaten their monopoly of power and to threaten their wealth, because this will narrow the scope of self-sufficiency. So self-sufficiency will not be something that is the number one goal of one individual, but survival will be the number one goal. And in this case, people are willingly giving up their sovereignty just in order to survive, in order to live. They give up their sovereignty over their bodies and over their existence in this third dimensional matrix. And they know very well psychologically that this is a very sensitive spot of a human being. They are using psychological warfare and they are working with the psyche of a human being. It is very, very well planned. It has been planned for a long time, and they know exactly what they are doing, and they know exactly how they can create a checkmate situation. However, each of these situations, each of these crises always bring new innovations, and they are always bringing creative new ideas in the collective. And they are kind of prepared for that as well. They know that there will be a group of people, groups of people that will choose to go off grid and to become self-sufficient and to grow their own food. They know about that. There have been publications about that as well, and articles written by these globalists. What would happen in a case that people are really feeling like they need to survive? They know that there will be an amount of people that will do that. However, self-sufficiency will not be as important as it has been important in the past 10 years or 20 years, when loads of millennials managed to open their small businesses and to become self-sufficient. And this pandemic was about that as well, to tear down those small businesses and to tear down one's individuality as well and ability to become self-sufficient and independent. And they will be doing all that with the pretext of creating fairness and equality in the world, making the world a fair place when you will own nothing and no one will own nothing. And even Klaus Schwab, in his book about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, is talking about a merging of humans with robots, merging of humans with machines. And this is what they mean by their Fourth Industrial Revolution. So as the economy is getting weaker and weaker, and as the prices are rising, and the housing market is crazy, is reaching like crazy levels, and then also inflation and so on, and we have now a crisis in energy as well, in the gas prices. What happens with these businesses that survived the lockdowns and they kind of made it through those very difficult times of the pandemic? Many of them are in debt right now, and many of them will be forced and will have no other choice but to replace their staff, their personnel, with artificial intelligence, with robots, with these artificial intelligence technologies that are less expensive than paying for a person that is doing the job. So these creative technological solutions are less expensive than a human being, and they are doing the exact same job. And this will be something that will drive many of these companies, many of these businesses to replace their staff, and this will result in massive job losses. So these technologies will be replacing workers like factory workers, like telemarketers, bookkeepers, ad sales, customer support, receptionists, retail sales, cashiers, certain media positions as well, delivery jobs, security jobs, fast food workers as well, taxi drivers, farmers, certain medical jobs as well, including surgeons and lab technicians. And again, this is not just a conspiracy theory, this is a conspiracy reality that is approaching. And when I did the predictions about 2022, I think I got that this year we will see more of that. So there will be more and more businesses this year that will start replacing their staff with this artificial intelligence. And this is something that Klaus Schwab is very clearly talking about in his book about the fourth industrial revolution, saying that these technologies and these scientific innovations will become extensions of our own bodies and minds. Augmented and cloud-connected humans will be the center of the next generation workforce. So as I mentioned earlier, we are in the phase 2, part 2 of this global reset, this great reset. And this war, which we are in the middle of right now, and this Russia and Ukraine conflict is a great opportunity now for the United Nations Sustainable Development to unfold as well. That is being built on global warming, right? Carbon war, which I will be talking about in future videos about the carbon war. So with this war between Russia and Ukraine, what is happening is that Europe is relying less and less on the Russian energy. And all these sanctions against Russia and against the Russian energy sector will be accelerating the transition to this green energy. And interestingly, in 2011, there was an article published by HuffPost, and they are debating in that article whether a nuclear war would be helpful for reversing global warming. Because if there are certain particles that are in the atmosphere, that would result in global cooling. So they are taking in consideration the benefits of a nuclear war when it comes to our environment. What a sick, hypocrite paradox is that? Just like Bill Gates' great innovative idea about covering the sun, that would be beneficial, and that would reverse as well global warming. These people are very, very pushing forward for this false green agenda. And now the disruptions of the supply chain, which is also an orchestrated manufactured event, manufactured thing, and the food shortages are encouraging the synthetic food industry as well to unfold. And this is something that Bill Gates is also very interested in and invested in. And he has been encouraging people for some time to give up on eating real meat and to switch to lab-grown meat instead. Now, I don't want to argue about whether or not you should eat meat. That is everyone's decision. But eating lab-grown meat, that would be, I think, devastating on the human population, because that would mean people getting sicker, which is also essentially the agenda of this global elite. Because a sick society doesn't only benefit big pharma and these big corporations, and it doesn't only mean depopulating the world, so reducing the world's population, but it also means making people be more and more reliant on government aid. This is what it's about. Creating a society that is becoming less and less self-sufficient, and a society that is over time also is forgetting about how to grow their own food and how to take control of their own life. This just means also more control for them and establishing this control grid in the world. So while we are being busy with each other, with arguing and taking sides and arguing about whether this side or that side can be more justified in terms of this conflict, these things are being introduced in our lives in front of our eyes without us even paying attention to that, because the mainstream media is directing our attention somewhere else. And even if we are paying attention to these things, because many of us are really digging deep and are going down the rabbit hole, it is still hard for us to connect the dots and to understand how things are being interconnected and how one thing can lead to the other thing. Because it is done in such a subtle and twisted way and in a hypocrite way that the average human being would not bother with decoding this twisted mindset. You have to be very, very aligned with yourself again and very aware with what is going on and understanding psychology in order to be able to decode this very twisted mindset of this globalist agenda. So what is the solution? The solution is, I will say it again, and I said it in previous videos, is to do the exact opposite of what their plan is. To become self-sufficient, not only when it comes to our finances, but when it comes to exchanging resources with other people, when it comes to raising our food, and maybe even relying on our ways of creating our own energy. And of course, the average human being is not thinking about these solutions. They are just happy if they can survive and they can live their lives and they can go on holidays maybe twice a year and be happy, especially after a period of time that they were so restricted. And I completely understand that. And I think it's a very high expectation for us to expect everyone to understand this very, very complicated mindset and agenda and plan that has been carefully crafted over the past maybe 20 years. It is very, very complicated and it's very hard for an average human being to understand that. Even for a human being that, as I said, is doing their research. So what we can do is to raise awareness, but not doing it in an aggressive way that, oh my God, I cannot change people. I cannot convince people to believe in what I believe. We cannot do that this way. And frankly, the goal should not be whatsoever to convince anyone. The goal should be to look at your own life and look at those areas where you can change your attitude, you can change your belief system, and you can better your own life. And this is how you will lead by example, but not doing those things with the goal of wanting to convince someone or wanting to prove yourself to other people. And to be able to say that, what did I tell you? What did I tell you some time ago and you did not believe me? Now you can see it with your own eyes. Now you can experience that. No, this is the attitude of the ego, and we all have the tendency to do that with other people. So no, this is not the way. This is not how we should handle these things. Just look at your own life, where you can better your own life. And this is how you will lead by example. When you get in alignment with yourself so much and you live your life in a harmonious way, and other people will see that and will feel that energetically as well, because you will radiate that joy and that harmony and that peace. And they will say, yeah, maybe I want to live my life as well like you. And I want to simplify my life as well as you did. And I want to have the wisdom that you do have as well, because I can see that you are happy. I want myself to feel harmonious as well, to feel so peaceful, to be like you are. Please help me. Let me know, what can I do? So the question that we need to ask ourselves is not how to convince someone or how to make someone see what we are seeing. But the question is why we are wanting so badly to convince the other person. Is that about them or is that about us? Is because we are worrying about them and we want their own benefit, or because we are worrying about our own effect on other people? Does it have to do really with them, or it has to do with us? Because what we think that is the best for the other person is actually what we think that is best for us. Certain people need to behave in a certain way that is benefiting us, and we are projecting that onto others, onto them, and trying to convince them that yes, that would be the best for you, but it's not. So don't worry about what is best for other people, but worry about what is best for you, and direct your attention back to yourself instead of projecting. All right, let's pull some cards from this beautiful oracle deck that I just got recently, and let's ask about humanity, and as I said, the shadow work and what we are going through right now and what humanity needs to focus on right now. What is that we are healing? What is that the collective is healing? So what is that humanity is healing? A global guidance, please. One card. Yeah. Trusting tricksters. Wow. The trickster's only power is your trust. You are always free to withdraw it. Look at that. Oh my God, that could not be more relevant right now. That trickster energy. And that is confirming that they can only trick us, and we can only give power to those tricksters when we trust them, that they have our own benefit, that they are having our best interest at heart. Number 6. So this is what we are healing right now. This is what the collective is healing now. And as I said, there's a lot of resentment that is coming to the surface now because of that, because of humanity being tricked, being disrespected, our boundaries being crossed, and so on. And it's coming up in a collective, like on a collective level, that this is what we feel like it has been done to us, but it's happening also individually as well. And as I said, you might feel like your best intentions are being taken for granted, or are being misunderstood, or your efforts are being misunderstood, or you are giving more than you're receiving. So this imbalance and the emotions related to that imbalance are coming to the surface now. So let's see what this is saying. I love the guidebook as well, and the messages. By the way, it's called The Lantern Oracle by Angelina Mirabito. Very nice cards. And it says, tricksters will typically gain your trust gently and then incrementally disrespect your boundaries. Your kindness will be taken advantage of for as long as you allow it to be or have it to give. Tricksters excel at detecting any sense of lack or inadequacy that we believe about ourselves. This includes unworthiness, loneliness, and being deficient in some way. Tricksters' false promises to fulfill, protect, and love us in our inadequacies are designed to ensnare us within their influence. Once we enter into the kingdom of their lies, we remain entranced within the glamorous delusion, while they sustain themselves upon our vital life force. This is exactly what humanity is going through right now. Thankfully, the trickster's ability to fool us is dependent upon the power that we give it to do so. All that it takes to initiate freeing ourselves is for us to see and acknowledge the trickster's strengths for what it is, and its empty promises for what they are. Yeah, I love that. I love that message, because this is exactly what we are needing to heal at this time. And I think it's healing as well, both individually and collectively, recognizing the trickster energy in our lives. And this energy is not only present in this global force that is thinking, that is lording over the planet, but is present within us as well. And they are just mirroring that, because that trickster energy is within us as well. And we have the tendency to trick ourselves whenever we are in denial, or we are not acknowledging certain things about ourselves. And instead of looking inward and asking the right questions from ourselves, as I was saying, we are looking outward and we are projecting those things onto the world. And until we don't turn inward and heal those things and acknowledge those things, then we will keep seeing them in the external world as well. And look at that fox. The fox is normally symbolizing that trickster energy. And the fox is giving false promises, lies to that girl. And I don't know if you can see it, probably not. But that flower there looks like it's blooming, but it's actually dying. Because that long part of the flower there, it's very dry already, and it feels like it's worn out, sort of. And it is also connecting to that flower, to that girl, but in a way that is parasitic. So it is around the arm of that woman there, meaning that it is living and feeding off the life force of that person. And while the person is being deluded by this trickster energy, by the fox. And then just here, just behind the woman, there's a rat. There's a rat there which you cannot see properly, but that rat, I think, is representing the hidden parts, maybe the shadow parts of that woman that she's not able and she's not willing to look at. She would rather look outside. She would rather look at what is in front of her, that is glittery, that is glamorous, that is telling her what she wants to hear, instead of looking at her shadows, looking at what is behind her and what is lying there. So this is representing, the fox is representing that trickster energy of the media, of what we are seeing in the outside world, and our projection as well. That is the representation of our projection. And we are not paying attention to our life force energy that is being sucked out and is feeding this trickster energy that doesn't want us to look what is behind us. And that rat maybe is even eating us slowly. Our shadows are eating us slowly because we are not looking at them. So the time has come for us to recognize that trickster energy and to stop trusting that trickster energy, because the trickster's only power is our trust. And you are always free to withdraw it. So this is a great lesson for humanity, and I think there's a lot of healing that is taking place now in that sense, and we are setting boundaries. We are recognizing that our boundaries have been really crossed for a long time, and this cannot continue like this. So this is today's video, guys. I hope it resonated with some of you. Thank you so much for everyone who is supporting me on my Patreon as well. If you want to support my channel, you can have a look at my Patreon. You can have a look at my posts, what I'm posting there. Now I'm doing monthly discussions there about what is happening in our society on a 3D level. And also 2 or 3 times a month I'm doing channeled guidances, channeled messages that are for my Patreon supporters. And then also channeled meditations. So if you are interested about those things, check that out. And thank you everybody who is supporting me otherwise as well with your donations. You are so appreciated, and I'm so grateful for everyone's support. So take care everybody, and I cannot wait to see you next time.